Hey everyone, welcome back to Kissing Sustainability. Today we're going to be talking about electric vehicles. Now, why are we talking about electric vehicles? Well, when you look at the breakdown of where emissions come from in the UK, over 40% of our carbon emissions either come from transport or from the upstream refining associated with making the fuel that those vehicles use. So making sure that we address transport is the number one issue that the UK faces in order to decarbonise. Now, before we get into electric vehicles, let's just say up front that any form of transportation has a climate impact. I mean, even walking, because ultimately you eat food and that has an impact. But if you're using a car, if you're using a bus, if you're using a train, if you're using a bike, they've all got materials in them, and so they all have an impact on the climate. Therefore, we should always be looking at what the lowest impact form of transport is. And when you look at an energy efficiency point of view, actually cycling comes out best. Then, of course, walking, and then well-used mass transit modes of transport. So rail, for example, when there's good numbers of people on that, is, of course, the most energy efficient. So ideally, wherever we can, we should be using our own 2 feet and walking places, jumping on our bike, cycling places, or getting on something like a train, or if needs be, a bus, rather than jumping in the car. But there are an enormous number of cars in the UK, well over 30 million, with 2.3 million new cars being sold a year on average. So just to say, well, let's not have any cars is unlikely to happen anytime soon. So where cars are required, or people are going to use them, then what are the most efficient ways of having that? Well, the answer is absolutely, it's an electric vehicle. And let me explain why. When you look at a diesel vehicle or a petrol vehicle, you need to look at what's called well to wheels. So all the way from taking the oil out of the ground through to refining it, bringing it through the system to the petrol pump, the diesel pump, putting it in your vehicle, burning it in an engine, and that making the vehicle move. And if you look at that whole chain, then internal combustion engine vehicles, diesel and petrol, typically are about 22% efficient. So you only get about 22% of that energy being translated into forward motion. If you look at an electric vehicle, that end-to-end, including all the generation, the losses through the system, moving it into energy, etc., are about 76% efficient. So far, far more energy efficient than the internal combustion engine vehicle. Now, as you can see, about 3.5 times as efficient. So that energy efficiency is a massive, massive advantage. Now, it is true that there is a slightly higher carbon footprint associated with producing electric vehicles. But if you do all of the maths, then that is typically paid back in about 10 to 15,000 miles, a little over a year in typical UK usage. And so, yes, there is that initial period where it's more of an impact, but very quickly it is a lower overall carbon impact. And there are some materials in batteries which are, of course, having an impact on the natural environment. They have to be mined, things like lithium. In some batteries you have cobalt. So those concerns are absolutely valid, and hence why I'm saying we should, where we can, use walking and cycling and so on. But we have to look at what the overall impact of use of materials is. And electric vehicles overall have a much, much lower impact for the reasons outlined. And things like cobalt are used in the refining process for oil as well. And of course, they're in batteries in your laptop, in your phone, etc. So this is not purely an issue with electric vehicles. Any technology has its downsides. So electric vehicles are absolutely better than internal combustion engine vehicles. They pay back on a carbon perspective very quickly, and they're also much better than some of the alternatives that you will hear about, like hydrogen or some of the e-fuels, biofuels and so on, which can be produced. Because fundamentally they have that massive energy efficiency advantage over all of those other forms of transport. I'll come on to talk a bit more in the next video about the ways that you can make electric vehicles stack up and how they look at compared to internal combustion engine vehicles from a cost of ownership point of view. But I wanted to start off just by addressing why they are the right answer. Where a car, a bus, a truck is needed, then it is absolutely electric. I hope that's been useful. Any questions, any comments, please put them down below. Remember to hit like, hit subscribe, and I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Until next time, keep kissing sustainability.